Hello and good day, eh? Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We are here because we are on a mission to inspire other families to enjoy camping adventures such as we have with our kids. Today's guest is the first in a new feature where we're highlighting non-YouTube celebrities. Being that he's a non-YouTube celeb, there's much less info to be gleaned from the interwebs. What we do know is that he likes to solo canoe trip a lot and jump on a fat tire bike to ride trails in the winter. He's also an amazing outdoors nature photographer. Please welcome Ron Bro, also known as Swifty Paddler. Woo, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're
Very
happy
cool.
to have you.
Very cool. I've been a fan for a while, as we've discussed, because I immediately, as soon as I started to follow you, it's like, oh man, check out, oh, those are great shots. Oh, those are great shots. Oh, that's awesome stuff. I fanboying, genuflecting. So the first obvious question I have is, why Swifty Paddler? What gives you that moniker?
Very easy. The first canoe I purchased was a Swift Quetico model, which ignited in me an interest in learning more about Quetico Provincial Park. And then it's a long canoe. It's 17 foot 4 inches, 17.4, I think. Great for the family. I'm married with two daughters who are adults at this point, but we still occasionally all get together. But it's a heck of a job portaging. It's when you try and get through narrow sections, that's where you really notice it. There's obviously the weight, but having a really long canoe and you're trying to turn and you get stuck in the trees. So I had it in my mind I wanted to get something smaller. And then I found that the person I typically traveled with, my best friend, his spouse has been quite ill for a number of years, so he hasn't been able to travel. So I decided to get a solo canoe. And of course, I gravitated towards Swift since that's what I was familiar with. I looked at some other models, but ultimately I really liked the Swift. So I had two Swift canoes. So Swift Paddler, Swifty Paddler just sort of rolled off my tongue.
Excellent.
And I learned afterwards, actually, that the man that started the company was called Swifty. I felt a little bit bad about that because I wasn't intending to, kind of
steal his name,
steal the family moniker. Yeah, but he was Swifty, just Swifty. So I can get by with that.
All right,
Swifty
cool.
But I'm assuming that they don't throw any money at you to use their canoes, or
none whatsoever. That would be great, but no. It took them quite some time, but at one point they republished one of my photos and it was like, yay, I've arrived in life.
Wow, excellent.
That's it. That's the pinnacle. Same deal. I've got a Swift and we've got a 17-foot. Oh man,
Algonquin, Winesque.
No. They got in trouble for advertising for non-vaccinated. They wanted two assistants for non-vaccinated. Shoot.
Oh, yes. I know exactly the one that you mean.
Shoot.
Yeah, they're out in northwestern Ontario.
Yeah. We bought it from Cripes, Clarny Outfitters, a rental refurb. Although it's half the weight of the 17-foot Scott fiberglass that we had previous to that. So I'm good with all the light stuff at this age. Yes,
absolutely. It does become more of an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thumbs up for pointing out how difficult it can be. Just that 3 feet of from a 14-foot solo to a 17-footer to turn that when you're doing a portage or something like that. Some of them are pretty tight, and there's that darn tree. I know Thomas and I have done where we trekked off into the bush and sort of schwacked, not huge, but because we could see that there was going to be more space to make that turn as opposed to try to trash it and go around the corner. Yeah, no fun at all.
Oh yeah, especially if it's a portage that hasn't been well maintained. There's trees down, branches, just stopping and moving those all the time. It can be exhausting.
Right. So, okay, there's a perfect segue. You mentioned Quetico. You're up farther east from us here in Toronto. What do you, obvious to me because I look at all your photos and stuff. Quetico is a great place to go. What are some of your where do your regular haunts?
Well, being around Ottawa, one of the places I obviously go quite a bit is Algonquin. Algonquin, as you know, is huge, right? There's different segments to it, and I like to go to the eastern side, the northeastern side. It's an entirely different character of park than it is from the Highway 60 corridor. A lot less people. It's easier to get into backcountry, so I go there quite a bit. I've been in Temagami multiple times. Again, kind of the same general area, just further north. On the Quebec side, there are a number of nice lakes there. One of them, Lac Poisson Blanc, very big reservoir, all sorts of islands. I've done that for many, many years. Actually, I was getting tired of it because I'd seen pretty much every place on the lake, even though it's a huge lake. But I varied it. I mean, there's Charleston Lake, Thousand Islands. I've paddled Thousand Islands a number of times. Very nice. Rideau Lakes, the Rideau River. Ottawa is really a great place for all sorts of winter activities, summer activities, hiking, and paddling all around within an hour or so.
Yeah, nice. But weirdly, we discovered this past summer, it was kind of like, oh, because we've got Lake Ontario and we've got the Toronto Islands. So Thomas and I took a paddling course, and it was like, oh, because we usually trek 4, 5, 6 hours to go and paddle. It's like 32 minutes, and I can be in a canoe in water.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to paddle Toronto Islands too. Just seeing that iconic backdrop, and it's such big water. That must be quite memorable for your first time out there.
Well, in the islands, it's actually quite shallow. So it's gentle, like compared to our first big water encounter was this past summer on the French River. We got down into Georgian Bay and was like, whoa, okay, that's a totally different animal. So the islands is, I suppose, you head out towards the big lake in between the islands and the whatever the cityscape. Yes, that's scary. There's way too much traffic out there. Like, yeah, not paddling that stuff. You're just going to get run over. You are pretty much guaranteed to get flattened by somebody. But the islands themselves was amazing. Was so cool. So just to do, a gentle, nice little. It was great. It was awesome. We're doing that stuff more.
Well, and a different perspective on the city for sure, to be able to see from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I guess the closest for me would be the Ottawa River. And last couple of years with COVID and whatnot, I've been paddling more of the Ottawa River and discovering there's some absolutely gorgeous places to go. And within 25 minutes for me, I can be down and in the water and into some of the quieter sections, creeks. Once you start going up a creek, you don't see anybody. Saw lots of wildlife, a lot of interesting birds there. So even a couple of eagles, bald eagles, which shocked me, so close to home. That was really something.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, we saw all kinds of wildlife. We saw cormorants, we saw turtles, blue heron, something else. Like, yeah, that's
great.
Like, it's right outside my, that close. That's amazing. That's
awesome.
Yay for nature. Okay, so I obviously, sorry, from your Instagram account, it would appear you do largely solo trips. You mentioned married and the 2 grown-up daughters. Do you guys actually get out and do canoe trips together as well?
Well, being they're adults now, we don't do it as much. We do like one family camping trip a year.
Right.
I usually get out once or twice with one or both of my daughters independently, just going out for, paddle, enjoy the fall or in the summer. But I haven't done any real like backcountry trips with them for a few years, not since they were into their teen years and other things pulled them away. Although with my eldest daughter, I think about 4 years ago we did Georgian Bay. I love paddling Georgian Bay out around Killarney, and in the Philip Edward Island archipelago. There's millions of places to go camping there, and I've been raving about it for years. And I took her out there, and she just had a blast. So it was a special thing. I'd like to go out there again with her, or with my other daughter, or my grandson that was born this year. So that's something new in my life.
Cool.
Thank you.
We're waiting on we're waiting on those, but since we have a 17-year-old and an almost 21-year-old, we're not pushing yet.
Yes, that's good.
And the older one's not too sure if that's ever happening with him.
Yes. But while he doesn't have a son, therefore I don't have a grandson, he's also my backcountry paddling partner. So I have mixed feelings.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing well, especially that French River trip. That's great.
It was awesome. It was a totally different thing than it was cool. Except
somewhere,
go ahead.
Somewhere I have yet to go. It's been on my list. I almost made it out to Nipissing in the start of the French River last year, but I should say this past year. But just with my daughter was expecting, and the timing didn't work out that good. So it's on my list of places to go. Certainly being many times in Georgian Bay, I have a sense of it. And looking at the videos, some of the amazing YouTubers that are out there, the scenery is very similar, but has a slightly different flavor, especially with the smaller size of the water and whitewater in places. So yeah. I look forward to seeing it.
It's yeah. We barely tasted it. It's cool. I'm going back for sure.
Great.
And have you done whitewater canoeing?
I've only done really one whitewater trip. Through Instagram, I've met a number of different people. One of them being Tosh from Tosh Self-Propelled.
Yep.
And we had talked about doing something, and he's a big whitewater paddler. I was interested, and so we did the Petawawa River in Algonquin last year, and that was, had a ball. Enjoyed it quite a bit. Learned how to read the water to a certain extent. One trip you can only learn so much over 3 days, but it's amazing how it, you start to get a sense of it. And then again with Tosh and Joe Robinette and Graham, trying to remember Graham's last name, evades me at the moment. We were trying to do the Spanish River this year. That was in June, but unfortunately the water levels weren't very good. They were lower than expected. So we ended up having to stop halfway and turn around because Tosh had encountered that once before and basically ended up dragging his canoe for a lot of the distance. And it was, not something he said he would ever want to repeat. So we turned it into basically just a mostly flat water canoe trip, a few swifts. But we had a ball, had some fantastic scenery, a lot of laughs, being out with two guys. I haven't done that with three guys before. I haven't done that for a while. So it was good.
Cool. So you get out a bit. What's an average year for you day wise, water wise? Meaning how many days do you get out canoeing or whatever?
Well, I left my full-time job coming up on 2 years ago. So that has, as you can imagine, changed my opportunities quite a bit. I'd say it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly, but probably every month I get out at least 3 or 4 days every month with a couple of good trips. Like my Quetico trips end up being 3 weeks to a month in them. just because driving, this floored me. Driving from Ottawa to Atikokan, which is, on the outskirts of Quetico, is almost like driving from Ottawa to Daytona Beach, Florida.
Oh, that's
it's a
crazy.
long drive.
Yeah.
So you want to really make the most of it. So the wife has been exceptionally accommodating and letting me go. So because there's so much incredible scenery along the way, I use that as a chance to go see Superior, Pakasaw along the way. There are other provincial parks that have always been on my sort of my one-day list, and this is a time of life where I intend to knock off as many of those as possible. So
good for you. That's awesome.
I've been doing that.
So, okay, so aside from the 3 or 4 week trips, I would give a body part. So mostly you're like 3-day-ish, 4-day-ish.
Yeah. Typically, when I go out by myself, I'd say it's typically 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 nights. Especially like winter camping and whatnot. I'll do 2 nights. Maybe last year, I had always wanted to do winter camping along the Superior Coast. I've been winter camping for a long time, and just the idea of being up in Superior. So I did that this past year, and I think I was either 3 or 4 nights. I don't remember, but you get a bit squirrely after a while. In really cold temperatures, even in a hot tent, it just I don't sleep as well, and you're up putting wood in the fire a lot. So that was about as much as I was comfortable with at any one time, at least by myself. If I had somebody else who could do half the fire, that would help.
Right. Yeah.
Winter camping is so much work. It's phenomenal. There's all sorts of things going for it. There's no bugs, there's no bears, generally no people. But it's a lot of work too. You get there and you're pretty much out harvesting wood, then you're cutting wood, and that goes on and going back and forth to your tent, depending upon where you're hiking or where you're exploring, you're on the go a lot.
Keeps the calories burning. That's good.
Definitely. And you got to take in more calories too.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I imagine, you're wherever you're doing it, whether even if you're car camping and car winter hot tenting, and it's still a lot of stuff to lug around, man. Like
yes.
the tent's heavier, all the extras of the stove, you've got extra, you've got another tarp you've got to put down on the floor, you've got to put something on top of that.
Absolutely.
Blah. Yeah.
I've only been hot tent winter camping for, I guess, 3 years now since I got my snow tracker. And it definitely adds a whole other level, because all of my winter camping is backcountry, and I use a sled. But now, in addition to the usual stuff that you have to bring, you've got a fairly large stove to put on there. The tents, snow tracker tents, are exceptional for a number of things, but lightness is not one of them. So by the time you get to where you're going, you're usually really hot. So managing your overall body temperature is very important. You don't want to get soaked immediately.
Yeah, note to self. I just took Camper Christina's winter camping for beginners course, and there's so many things. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, I don't think I thought about much of anything.
It's a completely different beast for sure. I've been doing it for almost 23 years. And, when you think you know everything, you still realize, oh, I forgot that, or I should do this. There's always opportunities to get better at it. But, got lots of years.
Cool. Okay. So just I giving some thought to the photography aspect. That's what drew me to your Instagram account in the first place. If you're only spending 3 or 4 days, like I see I'm not a great photographer. I have a knack for being able to pull a camera out of and just taking the snapshot that fits that I see in my eyes. You set your stuff up. There's no way that looking at your planning somehow, whether it's just while you're there, but your framing and stuff is just, it's almost too perfect. No, sorry, that's not the wrong way to go. That's the wrong way.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like
I mean,
it's absolutely, you design that shot and then you make the elements sort of fit it. How do you go about doing that? Like how much time do you spend setting up a typical, because they're fantastic. They're literally perfect shots.
well, thank you. I don't think I would see them quite the same way, but it's like anything, right? There's always people better than yourself.
Sure.
But in any case, I have been shooting for a long time, so you tend to have an eye for certain things. You train your eye for certain compositions. You know what you like, and you tend to put yourself into that position. And obviously, with something like Instagram, you're seeing my best shots.
Right.
I'm not posting all of the horrible shots that I take. So, my ratio may be slightly higher than yours, but these days with digital photography, I can go out and I can take, 500 shots over 3 days and then go through those and trash, trash, trash. Oh, that one looks pretty good. Trash, 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 trash. There've been times where I've come back and, if I get 4 or 5 really great shots over a period of 3 or 4 days, I'm happy. It's all about, like, half the fun is just making the shot, taking the pictures. I really enjoy coming back, editing them, straightening them out, cropping it the way that I like. There's a whole art to that, and that's something that takes getting used to the tools today, Lightroom or Photoshop. That's really a whole art in and of itself, and it can be almost like painting. I would imagine it can be fun, trying to go through, and I'm personally trying to explore more of that side, more of the creative side, because you look at some people and some of their photos are just spectacular, and there's no way it came out of the camera like that.
Right.
You can tell just the lighting, the sharpness. There's a lot of work that goes into these, and I've watched some YouTubers who spend an hour on a photo editing it, and just the things that they do are phenomenal. And it gets down to how much time do you want to spend shooting and being outside versus editing. And to me, I like a certain balance, and I don't want to go beyond that. I would rather spend more time out than here in front of a camera or in front of a lens, you know what I mean, in front of the screen. But a certain amount of it is fun.
Cool.
So I hope that kind of gives you a sense.
What kind of equipment do you use, Ron?
I have Canon cameras. I've got a variety of interchangeable lenses. I tend to shoot, if I go back and I look at most of my work, wide angle. I have a 16-24 lens that, in terms of full frame, that I use probably for the majority of my photos. I have some long lenses as well, which are great for wildlife, but they also add a huge amount of weight to you. Some of the larger professional lenses are, massive and heavy. And sometimes I kill myself on these portages where you're carrying all this stuff and you think, why am I doing this? But then when you see a moose and you see, the calf next to it, and you're able to get in there and make that shot, it makes you feel good. I would be frustrated with myself knowing that I'd spent all that money for a lens that's sitting at home. So
not doing the thing you want it to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and moose are just spectacular. So being able to capture that on film, it's just.
I have a number of blurry shots of moose because I didn't take the thing.
Yeah, well, most of mine are that way too.
All right, so winter camping, photography. Oh, I saw you have you've got a what do they call them? Fat tire bikes?
Yes.
Tell me about that, because it's something I haven't. I bike here in Toronto on the streets very dangerously on a like a mountain bike that I lower the tire pressure, so I've got better grip. I haven't died. Nobody's run me over yet. I would much rather do it out there with big tires, because that seems like a very smart move to do. Explain how that whole thing plays out, and what it does for you.
Well, I used to cycle to work quite a bit. I had a cycle commute, I guess, of about 15 kilometers per way. So that was nice. Great way to, start your day early and enjoy the sights and come home kind of relaxed. And I wanted to kind of continue to have a way to enjoy the outside. And I'd seen fat bikes. I'd seen a number of my friends had not close friends, or I should say not physically close, but I'd seen photos they had posted of fat bikes, and just looked like it would be a lot of fun. So I finally got the opportunity. I went to a place in Ottawa that sells them, and I took one for a ride, and I was hooked. It was just phenomenal. It's almost like the equivalent, I guess, of when you go from a two-wheel drive vehicle to a truck with 4x4 big wheels. When I was driving up around the parking lot of the place that I took it for a spin, I just like go right up over the curb. You can just drive over anything, drive over logs. So it just opens up a lot more space to get out. Like you don't need to have perfectly groomed paths. And the biggest thing is winter. Because of the size of the tires, you can get out there in 2-3 inches of snow. And Ottawa has a lot of trails, just a huge number of trails. Some of them semi-urban, many of them are very rural. And with the fat bike, it's just another way to get out in the winter. I used to cross-country ski a lot. Then it started to get more crowded, and then you have to worry about parking and buying passes. So I kind of got more into snowshoeing, a lot of snowshoeing. And the fat bike has just sort of evolved from there as something I can just whip out of the garage within 5 minutes, be on a trail, and bring my camera. It's just another way to, try and stay fit and have a good time in the winter. And I shouldn't just say the winter, because I do it pretty much on 3 of the seasons, not so much in the summer, mostly because I'm not around. So
Okay, cool. So, but to continue about the fat bike thing, the tires obviously are quite wide and lots of tread around the side. So just to flip back to when I'm riding here in town, even on a mountain bike with knobbies and stuff, the thing I learned the very first season was upright. When I turn corners and stuff, I'm not leaning into corners and whatnot. I don't know how it plays for the fat bike because they do come around
absolutely.
the side.
I can go in a lot more places and more snow, but the biggest danger is ice. There have been a number of times where I've driven on some place that's been completely flat, and when you get that really thin layer of snow over the top of ice, and it's hard to believe, but it's almost instantaneous that your front wheel can just go out from under you and you fall down
and you're gone. Yep.
Yeah, a couple of times I'm sure I came close to breaking an elbow until I learned what to avoid.
Yeah.
So I thought about getting studs on the tires, but with a fat bike, it's very expensive. Like we're talking upwards of $500 to get a pair of studded tires. So at this point, I would rather spend that money on a camera and a lens than something I'm going to use or really need 4 or 5 times. I'd just avoid the ice. But it would be nice to have, all things being equal, especially if I was on the road, studs would be a good investment. That's one thing I've learned, that cars do not expect to see bicycles on the street. Often when I'm moving from one place to another, I will drive or ride along the side of the road, but because you can't go onto the curbs quite as much, especially as the snowbanks build up, you have to be really careful. So I would really encourage you to invest in some studs, just because you don't want to one day suddenly move to avoid something and then you fall where you want.
Yeah, and it doesn't go, or you're down like right there, right in front of them.
Exactly.
No way to get around it. Most of the time I deke and dodge. Most of the time I try to use alleys as much as I can.
Yeah,
although
that's good.
For the sake of argument, the crappier conditions, the potential for that thin skim of snow over top of some nice ice is higher in those. But as long as I'm staying upright, I'd say I'm probably, knock on wood, I'm probably about 3 years without a wipeout. So
that's good.
Yeah. Well, but I spent 3 years previous to that making up for for all the ones I'm missing now. Trust me.
I learned from experience. So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's a very painful experience.
And so solo canoe tripping, we have a nice new to us solo canoe hanging in the rafters in the garage. Somebody is interested in maybe any tips you have about solo canoe tripping.
Well, in particular, so I would ask about paddling. You're a single blade guy, at least for what I see from the pictures.
Yeah, yeah.
Me, I've got it. This one has a very low seat, like it's on the bottom of the
Boat.
Keewaydin.
Kuwaitan, yes.
Yep. It's on the bottom. It has the two pegs for
For the
that,
feet, yeah.
and so I keep thinking it should be a double paddle, like a double blade.
Option. When I ordered my canoe, I went with the foot pedals, and I chose not to use the multi-height seat, just because in talking to people, generally most people didn't end up using it. And I was not overly sold on paddling using my kayak paddle or a double blade. I've enjoyed, like, if you're out in big wind, it really does make a difference having that. Someone told me it's kind of like 4-wheel drive for your solo canoe. So I have brought it with me on a couple of trips. Most of the time I just portage it around and use it as a backup. But I'm generally just a single blade one side. I pretty much most of the time paddle on my right. I need to keep switching it up so that I don't get tendonitis and use up too much one side.
Yep.
That's what I'm comfortable with. And I'm not in a rush. I'm just kind of enjoying things and looking for opportunities to stop and take a picture of something, be on the lookout for animals, be quiet. So that's kind of my personal style.
All right, cool.
Whatever you're comfortable with. I would definitely suggest, try both. There's no issue in bringing both of them, and then you can, enjoy the best of both worlds.
Well, I'm not adverse. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a thing that we do is to take that spare paddle, because I've seen the ones we have less paddles than we used to have, because I've had to hand them out to people who didn't take a spare paddle, broke a paddle along the way. And it's like,
Wow.
what are you going to do now? Well,
That's nice of you.
Well, we have the spare, so that's good.
Yep.
I don't know. I keep thinking that the double blade thing, I'm old and creaky and stuff. So I keep, and the paddling out the one side, tendonitis, all that sort of jazz, the balance of it. And I'm not adverse to maybe going a little faster than just plodding along, just for fun, just to do that thing. Somebody did mention that I need to look at a longer length of the, I don't know what it is, shaft, because you've got to reach over the.
Yeah, you want at least 230 centimeters, I think, is what I was looking at as a starting point anyway. My kayak paddle snapped, and I was able to, it works now sort of stuck in one position as opposed to rotating. Right. So I've been looking at replacing it, and I was trying to make sure I got something long enough. And for me, I think 230 was the sweet spot, because you want to get the right angle. You don't want to have to like really
reach up and over. Yeah.
And plus then you get a lot less water pouring in on you.
Well, that was one of the other things, something about rings, the rings that are supposed to drip rings, that are supposed to stop it from all ending up in the middle of your.
Keyword there, supposed to.
Awesome. Note to self. Drape a garbage bag or something. Okay, cool. Ron, how cool. This is great. So I've been following you for a long time, and I can't tell you how appreciative that you came and just yacked with us. You
make it so easy.
Wow.
It's in watching other videos of yours, you certainly have an easy rapport with people, and I could even get that out of your email. You're the sort of person that I could just see sitting down and talking with. So this has been great.
Cool. And well, okay. So on that, at some point down the road, if you're ever interested, I would love to have the yak again. You are you were great to just and I still have about 8 questions on here that we didn't get to. So
Yeah, I could tell you about my my family camping trip where we drove from Ottawa to San Francisco with a tent trailer. We'll leave that for the next time.
That's a great story. Yes. Okay. So yes, please. We'll yak, but yes. All right.
So please do reach out to Swifty Paddler. He's at Swifty Paddler at Vero. He's Swifty Paddler Photo on Facebook, and he's at Swifty Paddler on Instagram. And thank you so much again to Ron Bro for joining us today. And please do reach out to him. Please do reach out to us. We are hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. I'm Pamela.
I'm still Tim.
And thank you so much for listening, and listen to us again soon.